And hello, everybody. Welcome into the Make the Money and Run podcast, sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Cupertino and the Britannia Arms of Capitola. Check out the Britannia Arms this weekend for NFL Sunday Ticket, all your college football bowl games starting next week. Of course, the NBA and NHL college basketball in full swing as we bring you back in studio. Vasivada Party Charlie O here for Monday, December 9th, 2021. Welcome in on Facebook. Welcome in on YouTube and Twitter Live. If you missed any of it, we got our Apple Podcasts all set up now. Apple, Google, iHeart, Spotify, SoundCloud. And don't forget, we're also sponsored by the Super Draft Pro. It's your new daily fantasy sports site. Real dollars, real opportunity to win. Check out Super Draft Pro. Sign up at superdraftpro.com/VPartySports. Get in there, create your own leagues, play your own daily fantasy sports, get your subscription in there and start your own stuff, but also real dollars, real money put out there, and multiplier leagues, as well as daily fantasy sports as well, too. More on that as we move on into the weeks, as we get into basketball. Thanks to Super Draft Pro for joining us as well, too. All right, we're in our studios here in San Jose and Sacramento. Lots to talk about this week in terms of football, Charlie. We'll start with the NCAA. How about the weekend? Last weekend it was. I did a lot of it on Monday, but we'll recap it a little bit. We have a Final Four now in college football. Alabama, Michigan, Georgia, and Cincinnati are the top four in those games, in those BCS semifinals. So Alabama and Cincinnati will open up in the Cotton Bowl. Alabama, 13.5-point favorite in the way too early lines, 58 the total. And then Georgia, who lost to Alabama, shockingly, not that they lost to Alabama, but how bad they lost to Alabama on Saturdays. The line went down from 7 to 6, all the way down to 6, and I got in late, but I had Alabama +6, and turned out to be an easy winner as opposed to some of the other games. Unlike Michigan turned out to be a pretty easy winner, Cincinnati turned out to be a pretty easy winner. So real quick, Alabama, Michigan, Georgia, Cincinnati round out the top four. Notre Dame, Ohio State, Baylor, Mississippi, the next four, and then Oklahoma State, who lost to Baylor over the weekend, and Michigan State round out the top 10. And then real quick, Utah, Pittsburgh, BYU, Oregon, Iowa, Oklahoma, Wake Forest, North Carolina State, Clemson, and Houston. And then the top 25 rounds out Arkansas, Kentucky, Louisville, Lafayette, San Diego State, Texas A&M. All right. We start off with the BCS, Charlie. Alabama, Cincinnati, Michigan, Georgia. What was your take on the Final Four rankings as well as the games from last weekend?
Well, actually, the committee got saved. The football on the field made it very easy for them. There was no controversy. The games let them decide so easily because it decided for them. I was with you. I was not necessarily surprised that Alabama won because Alabama is a good football team. I was shocked in how they won. It was like the Georgia Bulldog just laid down and went, woo, 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 woo. Come on, really? I was expecting a little bit of a fight at least. And it was disappointing. They finally put up a little fight there in the second half, but then, when you start making a run against a team like Alabama in the second half, you're dead meat, okay? Because you're already so run down at that point. You're not coming back against them at that, at that juncture. So I was disappointed about that, but you still have to put them in. There was never a question on whether Georgia was going to be in the Final Four. So that was there. But man, Alabama, once again, do we get sick of seeing Alabama in the Final Four? Yes. Is there a reason why Alabama's in the Final Four? Yes. They're, Nick Saban. Yeah. Listen, everybody knows my problem with Nick Saban. He left Michigan State. Okay. He got Michigan State up and running and moving and going, and then he ran out on him. Okay. Now I know why he ran out on him, because Michigan State wasn't going to pay him the money he's worth, but that still didn't make me less mad at him. So I'm always going to be mad at him, but he's a great football coach and he puts together a great program. He recruits great talent, and dang it, they're a good football team. And I got to tell you, if you force me right now to pick the winner of the national championship, it would be the Crimson Tide. It would. I just, now I've got a lot of time to change my mind, so I'm not making my final pick right now. But man, they're good. I'm as proud as I'll get out for Cincinnati being the first outside the Power 5 team for making it. It's going to be an uphill battle. I mean, they drew the bad card. I mean, they just drew the bad card, but they're there. And I think that's highly significant. And Michigan, man, Jim Harbaugh, dude, it's just awesome. I had a chance yesterday to listen to a little ESPN radio, and Freddie and Fitz were on, and they had a guy on it. I can't remember who the guest was, but it's a guy that used to play at Michigan, a tight end. And he said the whole atmosphere at Michigan has changed because Jim Harbaugh has changed. And I know that you are going to be shocked by this because I was shocked.
I'm already shocked that you just said that.
that Harbaugh has become a much more relaxed coach.
Yes.
And that it has changed the entire tenor of the program. And he said, that's why these guys are playing the way they've played. It's just amazing. And Harbaugh and relaxed are something I never thought I would say in the same sentence. Now that doesn't mean he's become a B-type personality, but it's his ability to change that has helped make the change in attitude in that program that's brought them to where they are. And I think that's a magnificent story on its own, whether they win the national championship or not.
Vasu Party, Charlie O here, the Make the Money and Run podcast for Thursday. We'll be here for tomorrow for the full Friday football show. We'll preview all the NFL games. We got Thursday night football as well. I want to mention the Britannia Arms of Cupertino, the longest running British pub and restaurant in Silicon Valley on the border of San Jose and Cupertino. Check out the website. They've got happy hour specials back. They've got live music back. And they're going to have a Make the Money and Run podcast pregame show this Sunday live from Cupertino. Come on down, 9:45 to 10:15, the showtime. Come on down, watch NFL Sunday Ticket, have breakfast, have lunch, have British food, British drink. It'll be a lot of fun. Had a lot of fun there a few weeks ago when I was there. So we're going to do it again this Sunday at the Britannia Arms in Cupertino. All right, back to college football a little bit here. Last weekend, a very interesting conference championship weekend. We already had a kind of our parameters for the Final Four. Oklahoma State did not help themselves in the 5 spot, getting beat by Baylor 21-16. I did have Baylor at +6 on Saturday. They outplayed them. They clearly outplayed Oklahoma State. Not a fan of Spencer Sanders, their quarterback at Oklahoma State. He doesn't throw the ball well, and they were protecting and spying against him, and they held him to 16 points. What a terrific play at the end of the game. Even if they had scored, the Baylor people would have still won their bet because it was +6 on that matter. But Baylor 21-16. They were number 9 at the time. They moved up. Oklahoma State at 5. Thoughts on the Big 12, Charlie? Because Oklahoma State, that was the wild card right there as far as Cincinnati was going, because you knew whatever happened with Georgia, they were still going to be in. Michigan probably was going to still stay in. And then depending on what happened with Alabama, a 2-loss team, there was a slight chance they could have stayed in with a second loss, depending on how everything shook out.
Yeah, Vasu, I was really surprised at Oklahoma State because, I didn't expect that Cincinnati was going to lose, but there was always a chance, and Oklahoma State was sitting right there at the doorstep. And if they win and Cincinnati loses, they're in. And man, they didn't play like a team that was ready to step in into the big show if Cincinnati stubbed their toe. And so I was really shocked about that. I don't know. This is why I get bored with Big 12 football. I mean, no, seriously. I mean, come on, really? This is why Texas and Oklahoma are leaving. The competition does not step up and make itself big time.
That's not why they're leaving, Charlie.
Yes, it
That's
is.
not why they're leaving. They're leaving for dollars.
Well, I
they're
mean,
leaving for the SEC and they're leaving for big dollars.
But it's in part of it because they're never going to get the big stage. The money level will never step up because they're not going to get the national TV contracts and they're not going to get the big things. because the rest of the conference is not that competitive, where the SEC has made itself competitive most of the way through. And so, no wonder they won out of there. They're not going to get that kind of competition. And I think that game shows itself. I mean, yes, it's money, but it's money in part because they're going to have better teams to play against. So that's my point.
All right. So Baylor beats Oklahoma State in the Big 12. How about Utah State? Utah State just ripped up San Diego State in Carson, 46-13 there. How about the Aggies of Utah State? We didn't think much of them going in. Thought it was the San Diego State Fresno State Conference, and Utah State, they were about a 6.5-point underdog as well too, and they ended up outright. A lot of underdogs on Saturday. So Utah State over San Diego State. San Diego State will be in their beautiful stadium next year, so that might change scenarios. We talked about Cincinnati. It was a close game at half with Cincinnati and Houston, and then Cincinnati ended up outscoring them 21-7 at the end, and Houston still had a chance to cover at the end. They just couldn't get it across the end zone, much to the happiness of all the Cincinnati wagers out there at -10.5, 35-20, the final score. And then the Big Ten, Michigan and Iowa. Boy, we knew Iowa couldn't score, and I didn't think Michigan had this good a defense the way they played all year in terms of Ohio State and some of the other games they've had. Of course, our guest Ted Robinson last week talked about Walker, the running back at Michigan State. Mm-hmm. He had the 4 touchdowns, but he led us to believe that Michigan outplayed Michigan State that game, even though they lost. But boy, that defense turned it on. Cade McNamara looked great. Haskins and Corum ran the ball well. They shut Iowa down. I mean, Iowa, it was over in the first quarter. 42-3, the final score. Michigan moves up from 3-2. They're in the scenario now. They've got Georgia coming up this week. Georgia, an 8-point favorite, 44.5 on Michigan, Charlie. I'll let you start off with Michigan first, but then Georgia -8 and 44.5 already on the early lines.
Yeah, I got to tell you, Vasu, I was sweating that game because I took the over. The over was 43.5. And so I looked at that, and I looked at everybody's suggestions and everything else. And I said, you know what? I know Iowa doesn't score a lot, but they've got to go that over. And I'm watching that game and I'm going, ah! And right at the end, the Wolverines came through for me. And so I got the over, but man, I was sweating that game. Yeah, Iowa's terrible. I mean, and your statement is totally correct. That game was over in the first quarter.
Yeah.
I mean, much to the chagrin of the TV folks, that game was over in the first quarter. So yeah, Michigan was very, very impressive there. I am a little surprised at the big numbers for Georgia already, but a lot of time for that to change. And I got to tell you, I wouldn't be putting big money down on Georgia at this point after what I saw them do on Saturday. I mean, you got a charged up, motivated Michigan team that I would say surprising a lot of people at this point. I'm not sure they should be after the way I've seen them play against Ohio State and against Iowa. And I was impressed in Ted's analysis of them too against Michigan State. So I don't think it's a given that Georgia's just going to walk over them. Now, I'm not convinced yet that Michigan's going to win, but I think this game's going to be a lot closer than anybody thinks. This is not a gimme game to Georgia.
No, it's not. I just don't think that it's too early, obviously, to get through all that. And we don't even know what the injury status is from both teams coming out of the weekend. I know for Alabama, John Mechie hurt his ACL, so that might cause some issues for Alabama. 13.5 on Cincinnati. Desmond Ritter's a pretty good quarterback, and they have a pretty good defense. I don't know if they can keep up with Alabama, but boy, Bryce Young looked awfully sharp. And if he didn't win the Heisman before Saturday, then I got a feeling the Heisman Trophy is going to be his anyway as a freshman.
I think he's got to clear up space on his shelf.
I think definitely. Yeah, I think definitely. So Baylor wins the Big 12. Utah State, the Mountain West. Louisiana Lafayette wins the Sun Belt. Michigan over Iowa in the Big 10. Georgia over Alabama in the SEC. The American with Cincinnati. And then the ACC, would throw a minute here. Kenny Pickett had himself a good game. I know Wake Forest's defense turned down the last few weeks, but boy, 45-21, Pitt ended up coming through in the ACC. Good for them because they really had a pretty good team this year.
Yes,
and I thought they were better than Wake Forest to begin with. Wake Forest got off to the 8-0 start. Might have been some smoke and mirrors defensively, but Pittsburgh wins the ACC as well too. And we got bowl games starting on December 17th and run all the way to the championship final, the CFP final, January 10th in Arlington at Jerry's World. That Monday night, I think that's Monday night after the last weekend of regular NFL season. So there's no Monday night games. So the college football playoff final is going to be on that Monday night after week 18 of the NFL. All right, when we come back in 30 seconds, we'll be back with the NFL. We'll preview tonight's game, talk about the weekend a little bit ahead of our Friday football show. And we've got the NBA and some college basketball to talk about. I'm going to tell you why Reggie Jackson, not Mr. October, Reggie Jackson of the Los Angeles Clippers has become one of my new favorite players. Back in 30 seconds on the Make the Money and Run podcast, sponsored by the Britannia. And welcome back to the Make the Money and Run podcast. Vasuvada Party. Charlie O here, sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Cupertino, Britannia Arms of Capitola. Check out Sunday morning, actually, 9:45 a.m. before the first kickoffs, 9:45 to 10:15. We'll have a pregame show, an NFL pregame show as we did a few weeks ago. Come on down if you happen to be in Silicon Valley to the Britannia Arms of Cupertino and enjoy the.
Whoops, Vasu just locked up on us. He'll be back here in a minute talking about the Britannia Arms in Cupertino and over in Capitola. We want to thank them both for being sponsors with us. Don't forget, being Britannia Arms, they also have football European style. So if you're fans of the football that way, they also have that on the big screens for you as well. So you can get up early and they have the big screens for that. So you can go and enjoy that. Well, Thursday night football is here again already. Wow, man, everything flying by. And we've got the Steelers at the Vikings tonight. And that is going to be a game that you might not be necessarily all excited about, but it's football and it's a wagering opportunity. Of course, the big news of the week is that Big Ben has said this is going to be the final season. And that is, I think, both a motivator and probably maybe a time of grief for the Steelers. They've got to kind of put that all together and figure out what that means for them. But probably more of a motivator at this point because they're going to want to do well for him. They're going to want to send him out with a blaze of glory. I'm not sure they really can send him out with a blaze of glory because the Steelers are not what they really were at one time. We know that because we've seen them just get beat up. Hi, we've just been talking about Britannia Arms and football. They have the other football, the European football. And I was just talking about the Steelers and the fact that Big Ben has said this is going to be the final year and that's both probably going to be a motivator and a bit of grief for the Steelers, but they'd like to send him out in a blaze of glory. I don't think they can do that because I'm not sure they've got a blaze of glory left in them this season. But, probably a bit of a motivator for them as they hit into the final weeks of the season.
Well, as we hit, before I cut out of there a little bit, we'll hit up the Britannia Arms again through Sunday morning, 9:45 to 10:15. Come on out. Check us out. Love to meet everybody. Come out there for the pregame show, the NFL kickoff show. We'll get all the lines. We'll get all the selections out on Monday as well. Don't forget our selections every day at 6 o'clock Eastern on social media, 3 times on Saturday, twice on Sunday. College basketball Saturday this weekend as well, too. So we've got big things going on here with college basketball. All right, back to the NFL here. Pittsburgh visits Minnesota tonight on Thursday Night Football. 5-7 for the Vikings, 6-5-1 for the Steelers. Steelers in 8th behind Buffalo, Cincinnati, the Chargers, Indianapolis behind them at 7-6. The first 3 at 7-5. Cleveland and Denver at 6-6, and I don't even want to take out the Miami Dolphins yet. They've won 5 in a row and they are 6-7 right now, and they've got some tiebreaker advantages. If they can win a few more games, they'll put some pressure right there. The Minnesota Vikings, 5-7. They're in 9th behind Philadelphia, 6-7. San Francisco on that. Washington football team, red hot, 6-6. Washington has the tiebreaker advantage on San Francisco, and the Rams in the 5th spot at 8-4. Carolina, no McCaffrey the rest of the year with Atlanta and New Orleans, 5-7. Minnesota has the tiebreakers, but over Atlanta, New Orleans, but loses out to San Francisco and Washington. And Washington, as we said, has a better conference record than San Francisco. Let me give you the scenario here for Minnesota, because I read this. I want to make sure I read this right here. Charlie, you're going to love this. I know it's way too early to go into all these machinations, but here are the Minnesota.
I love these things.
Yeah, here's the Minnesota Vikings scenario right now. So if you look at Google and you get the tiebreakers, we know that division tiebreakers go first. So Minnesota will win the tiebreaker over Carolina because Carolina has the head-to-head percentage on Atlanta and New Orleans. Let's see. Carolina, based on head-to-head win percentage, division tiebreak was initially used to eliminate Atlanta. Carolina wins tiebreak over Atlanta and New Orleans. Based on head-to-head win percentage, division tiebreak was initially used to eliminate New Orleans. Carolina wins the tiebreak over Atlanta and New Orleans based on head-to-head win percentage. So basically, Minnesota has the advantage over all those teams because Carolina, Atlanta, and New Orleans are all in the same division, and that's how everybody else got lost out. Minnesota, one of their few wins on the road this year, was at Carolina in overtime. They won 34-28 with a Dalvin Cook touchdown at the end to cover the 3.5 that they were favored by against Carolina. A touchdown was going to give them the win. Here are the numbers tonight for Minnesota and Pittsburgh, Charlie. The number will not come off 3. The money line has moved off the minus 110 odds, minus 125 in some spots. Minnesota minus 3-44. Pittsburgh, Minnesota 3-2 at home. Pittsburgh 2-3 on the road, but Minnesota 6-6 against the spread, only 2-3 at home. Pittsburgh 5-7 against the spread, but 3-2 on the road. The Steelers are 5-2 as a dog. Minnesota only 1-4 as a favorite. So, do we take the even odds, or maybe even buy a half point or a point on Pittsburgh tonight, who has an above 500 record and can really make some damage in the AFC right there with the other 3 teams? They just came off a loss to Cincinnati. They beat Baltimore last weekend. I don't know why Baltimore went for 2. That's a different story. But Pittsburgh's right there in the mix of things at the 8th seed, Charlie.
Yeah, and this is an interesting one that I just found out. Kirk Cousins is 8-17 in his career in primetime games.
Yeah.
So he doesn't
over for a long time. He was over for a long time.
Yeah. He doesn't like playing at night. I don't know what it is. Guess he's an early morning guy. I don't know.
Bright lights. Bright lights. But here we are at 3-44 for Minnesota. No Dalvin Cook. They've got line problems. They lost to the Lions last weekend on the last play of the game when your DB is 10 yards off your receiver, but the goal line's only 4 yards away. And by the way, good for the Detroit Lions and good for me. I kept saying they're going to win a game, and you gave me flack for it for about 5 weeks in a row. I said they're going to win a game, and they covered a lot of games this year for a lot of people. In fact, the Lions have 5 wins against the spread this year if you take the Lions on that point spread. But how do you give up a touchdown? Good for Detroit. Good for Oxford High School. Good for that community. Everything that they played for. And good for Dan Campbell. 110-1.
Not good for Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell has to go. Go.
No. He's going to be there for next year.
No, anyway. That's a mistake by the lake. He's got to go.
Well, anyway, Minnesota, good for Detroit in winning and good for Detroit in covering, because that was one of my favorite picks of the week, was taking Detroit +7 at home. But the fact is that Minnesota gave that game away late. There's no reason for them to be able to give up a touchdown that late and let them move down the field, first of all. And then secondly, play 10 yards off the goal line when the goal line's 4 yards away, Charlie. I mean, come on, a slant in. Anybody, any quarterback, college or pro, could make that throw with their eyes closed, basically. That's exactly what happened. Here's something interesting, though, and we're going to have to look this up. The game ended up at 29-27, maybe because the clock was at 0. But I'll have to look at this because I've heard Mike Pereira from Fox Sports. He's the rules guy, for those that know, and Gene Steratore with CBS. I thought you're supposed to kick the extra point, because if you kick the extra point, they have a chance to run it back and tie the game. And I thought in that scenario, unlike the scenario for Minnesota and New Orleans a few years ago in the Miracle on the Lake, that because there was no chance for them to tie, that they did not have to kick the extra point, or they changed the rule in that game. So I'm a little shocked that they did not try to kick the extra point. Of course, they wouldn't have done it. They would have kneeled on the ball, because it happened last year with Buffalo and Arizona with the Hail Murray pass, and they ended up having to come out and at least line up for the extra point, which Murray kneeled on. And I don't know why they didn't do that. Maybe there's a rule change that I don't know about that was 0 on the clock, but I thought for sure that they would have had to come out and do that. Not that they would have kicked it. I would have never kicked it if I was Detroit anyway, but that's a different story. But I was a little surprised that they did not come out to kick the extra point.
Yeah, we'll have to look into that. I'm assuming there's a rule change, probably for player safety or something. That's the only thing that I can put together on that. But however, that could also be a bettor's nightmare. So we need to look that up, because
right. I will tell you the quick story here before we get to the rest of Sunday here. We'll lightly bruise up against Sunday's game. We'll have a full Friday football show, 1:00 Eastern on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Thanks to everybody on Facebook right now. How you doing, Frank? San Diego, appreciate you checking in. The miracle on Minnesota with Case Keenum to Stephon Diggs that gave them the lead. I personally, and I know a lot of people, obviously, New Orleans plus 5.5. That touchdown, the 6 points, made it 5, and they still had to kick the extra point at that point. Fortunately, the Vikings did not. They were running on the field. The game was over, but they brought them all back out for the extra point. I thought, oh, no, I'm going to lose. Well, it turned out I did not lose, because they kneeled on the ball for the extra point. So I still got my 5.5. Stephon Diggs got his miracle in Minnesota, and we all were happy at that point. But anyway, so that's how the genesis of that started. All right, we move on to Sunday football. Lots of action on Sunday with a lot of ramifications. We had a good Monday Night Football game with the Patriots and the Bills, the wind and everything that took. The Patriots won with 3 passing attempts, Charlie. Mac Jones, I don't know if he had I know they made note of Mac Jones getting the keys to the car. He did not have the keys to the car on Monday night. It was the running game. The defense played well. They shut Josh Allen down, and that defense and the New England Patriots now 9-4, basically 2 games up on the Buffalo Bills now. The bye week this week. Let me check this out, although I have the wrong schedule. The bye week.
Well, New England's on bye. I know that.
Okay, New England, Miami, Indianapolis, and Philadelphia. All right, so we're all going to be at the same records. We're all going to be at the same records after this weekend. Last bye of the year. New England 9-4, Buffalo 7-5. A huge win on the road for the Patriots at a 3-point underdog spread. I bought it up to 3.5, so that worked out well for me either way. But what was your take on Monday night's game before we get to this weekend, Charlie?
Well, I first of all, I went with New England, so I was happy with that to start with. But everybody's kind of making a big deal out of, they didn't pass enough. You know what? The success of any team that's going to make it successfully deep into the playoffs is you've got to be able to win in multiple ways. And I think that is the key to a Belichick team, especially when you've got a young quarterback. They just showed that they're not just dependent on the quarterback, and they can run the ball. So now you got to be afraid. They can pass, they can run. They're multifaceted. I think this makes them even more dangerous, because now you got to try to decide, how are they going to beat you? And also for the Bills, good Lord, what is wrong with that team? I mean,
they were the best team in the NFL.
The Bills were our team. We just said, hey, Bills Super Bowl. That was the pick at the beginning of the season. And now, how deep are they going to go in the playoffs? Right now, I don't feel very deep. So it's pretty amazing. And again, that Belichick, he's going to be nothing without Brady. I'm telling you, man.
Yeah,
nothing.
Best record in the AFC, Arizona, Green Bay.
And by the way, I don't want to say I got a little homage to Belichick today. The short sleeve hoodie.
Oh, the hoodie today. All right. So New England. So Buffalo drops all the way down to 7th. They lose the tiebreaker based on conference games to Cincinnati and the Chargers, and they are a half a game ahead of the Steelers, who play tonight, as we said, against the Vikings on the road. And I'm not knocking Ben Roethlisberger out now. All of a sudden, I think they may end up getting that win tonight at Minnesota. Minnesota needs it.
And Vassar, I think part of the problem is going to be is that Minnesota is going to be pretty one-dimensional tonight. I mean, it's going to be pretty much Cousins and Jefferson on the offense, and Pittsburgh's defense is going to know that. So if they can shut that down, that's going to give them a real opportunity, because Minnesota doesn't really have a lot of other options other than that, based on injury and where they are.
Yeah, and look at how good the Steelers defense was against Baltimore over the weekend.
Absolutely.
I know Lamar Jackson has struggled, but they ended up getting a big win as a 4.5 point underdog at home against the Ravens last week. That 20-19 victory. All right, again, a full Friday football show tomorrow, but let's hit the games a little bit. Raiders and Chiefs. Raiders going down, Chiefs going up. The win over Denver, 9.5 and 48. Some of the other games, Tennessee has got to get back on track. They get Jacksonville this week as well, too. I saw Terry Bradshaw. I saw somebody. Oh, no, I saw Boomer Esiason, Phil Simms. They still think Tennessee's got a shot at the number 1 seed right now, and that's going to be tough considering they've already lost to New England. But that may be a prediction way out in the future. But Tennessee at 8-4, only a half game back of the Patriots for that 1 seed. They do lose the tiebreaker based on the head-to-head when the Patriots kicked their you-know-what's in a couple of Sundays ago. Really beat them up badly. So Tennessee, Jacksonville, a big one. Cleveland lost at Baltimore 2 weeks ago on Sunday Night Football. They're a 2.5 point favorite against the Ravens, who might be motivated now. They dropped from 1 all the way to 3 after going for 2 against the Steelers on Sunday night. I still don't know why they did that, because they needed that win. They didn't have a big comfortable lead in the conference records, and now they go from 1 all the way down to 3 because Tennessee beat up on Baltimore in Baltimore, and so they fall to 3, but they are ahead of Kansas City in that scenario. So Cleveland and Baltimore, they don't like each other. Cleveland, a 2.5 point favorite coming off a bye. Carolina, Atlanta. Carolina seems to be trending down. Atlanta seems to be trending up, but I don't know if either team's going to be there, considering the 49ers, Washington own the 6 and 7 spot, and then you've got Minnesota in the 9 spot, and then in the 8th spot, Philadelphia at 6 and 7. And I can't figure out Philadelphia defensively this weekend. They've got the bye this weekend, so we'll see. And then the huge game in the NFC East, Charlie, we'll talk about this. Let's focus on this a little bit. Cowboys are 8-4. The Washington football team is 6 and 6. It's only 2 games back with 5 to go. Washington's on a roll. They got a game-winning field goal from their kicker on Sunday against the Raiders to win that game. After they beat Carolina a few weeks earlier, after they beat Seattle on Monday night, they are on a roll right now, and they could put some real pressure on the Dallas Cowboys. And I believe the game it's in Washington, early morning West Coast time on Sunday. I'm looking at Washington +4 here, Charlie. All of a sudden, this Taylor Heineke has turned out to be really good. Antonio Gibson is leading the NFC in rushing too, by the way, and Terry McLaurin has turned himself into an all-pro wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean, the Washington football team, I mean, we had written them off for dead. I mean, really. And all of a sudden, hello, Taylor who? And what a wonderful story this has been. If this game were in Dallas, I might have to look at it differently, but this game is early morning. Early morning here. It's the early game on the East Coast, but it's in Washington. It's going to be outdoors. And this time of year, you take an indoor team, take them back east, play them outdoors. That's a factor. I think it's going to be a whale of a football game. And I have to tell you, my early lean would be to the football team. I like the way they're playing. I think they're motivated. I think they feel good about the way things are going, and I think it's worth a big look. Now, again, this is early, so you gotta start watching for injury reports and all of those kinds of things. But they're playing good football.
By the way, Dallas is still one-dimensional because they're still working out, trying to figure out about Ezekiel Elliott. And Prescott has not been 100% solid this year. He's had a great year but I'm not sure who their receiver core is after all the COVID issues they've had. But Washington right now and Ron Rivera, they're right there, and they're in the 6th spot. They're a couple games back of the Rams right now. We'll get to Monday night in a second because that's a huge game in the NFC West as well, too. But Dallas, Washington headlines the early games, as does the Raiders and the Chiefs. Cleveland and Baltimore, another big game as well, too. And then we move into the afternoon segment. Denver is 6-6. They got beat up by Kansas City. They look like they're on a downward trend, but they're only a couple of games back of the division there too. But I just don't get the same feeling on Denver as I do other 8-4 teams or 6-6 teams in that 7-5 teams, I should say, in the AFC. You've got the Chargers at 7-5, the Bengals at 7-5, Buffalo at 7-5, Steelers 6-5-1. Indianapolis is 7-6. By the way, Jonathan Taylor having an unbelievable year. He might be the best running back now that Derrick Henry is out. The Raiders, a tough loss over the weekend. Them and Cleveland are tied at 6-6, along with Denver at 6-6. And we said Miami at 6-7. So Denver, Detroit. We saw what Detroit did last week. I might take Detroit just for the heck of it again. Denver's offense hasn't done anything.
Well, they could be motivated. They could, once you taste that victory.
Yeah.
It's
Campbell, 5 straight. 5 straight wins to end the year. And coach of the year. No.
I'm coming, Elizabeth. I'm coming.
Yeah. Dan Campbell.
You got to be really old to get that reference.
Yeah. Dan Campbell and Brian Kelly on Charlie O's Christmas card list.
But Denver's a hot mess. Okay. Yeah. Fangio's probably not going to be back. I mean, he's on the DOA list for coaches right now. I mean, they're talking about who's going to replace him everywhere. And teams know that. I mean, teams aren't blind to that. And I think that's I don't know why because a lot of that stuff comes out of the front offices. They could kill that right now. And when you don't kill it, then that comes in and that just eats on the motivation of a team. So at this point, I would stay away from Denver because they know they're dead men walking. And so that becomes a team that I'm not wagering on because I don't think their heads are in the game anymore.
Chargers and the Giants this weekend as well, too. Justin Herbert, they're coming off their big win at Cincinnati. Giants may not have Daniel Jones again this weekend. Not sure about Barkley's status as well, too. 10 seems kind of low, but you never know about the Chargers. They've been inconsistent as well. The two big games in the afternoon, Tampa Bay Buccaneers 3.5 and 53.5 against Buffalo. We saw what Buffalo did on Monday night. It's going to be different weather conditions. They are in Tampa Bay. They have faced the Tom Brady-led Patriots for all those years. And if they can run the ball, Tampa Bay's secondary has been very sluggish, for lack of a better word. Their defense hasn't played as well as they did last year in the Super Bowl year. They had a tough time with Atlanta for one half, but the defense picked it up in the second half. The Falcons are not the Bills. Josh Allen is not Matt Ryan, at least not at least at this point in Matt Ryan's career. That's going to be a tough game for Tampa Bay. I think that's why the line's only at 3.5. And I got a feeling Buffalo's motivated because they are only a half a game back of the Patriots right now. Game and a half back of the Patriots right now with the Patriots bye. This is a chance for them to still be in striking distance in the AFC East. So I don't overlook Buffalo at all just because of what happened on Monday night against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Charlie.
Tampa Bay can clinch the NFC South with the win.
Right.
Sorry, Buffalo. Sorry. Here's your lovely parting gifts.
The other big one to talk about is the 49ers and the Bengals. Joe Burrow's finger, the biggest topic of the week. They did not look good against the Chargers. Probably a lot had to do with the fact that Joe Burrow can control where he's throwing. But I give the Chargers defense a lot of credit. We bashed on them a little bit all year, and they almost did blow that game just in the third quarter. Cincinnati did come back. Joe Mixon fumbled, and Campbell ran it back for a touchdown. And then before you know it, it was 41-22. Chargers in the 5 spot in the AFC. The head-to-head over Cincinnati allows Cincinnati to move down to the 7 spot. So Cincinnati, San Francisco, tough game for San Francisco and Seattle. We had a thought here on the Friday football show that Seattle was going to be a tough opponent for San Francisco. Well, when you've won 16 out of 20, including last Sunday, I don't care who the Seattle Seahawks are, especially at that stadium, Lumen Field now it's called. They did not look good. They certainly didn't help themselves with the turnovers, and they certainly did not. I don't want to say they took anybody lightly. I know the coaching staff did not, but there were too many turnovers in that San Francisco-Seattle game, Charlie.
Well, there were too many turnovers, and the team became a mash unit. And so you combine that, and it was not a good thing. But again, you're absolutely right. We said you can't take Seattle lightly, and Lumen Field was burning bright like that. It was, it's a tough place for them to play. They did not play well, and they got beat. And it's a division game. It's a rivalry game, and you cannot count a Pete Carroll team out led by Russell Wilson. And I don't think they took them lightly. I just don't think they played up to par. And this has been a hallmark of the 49ers, I think, all season. We're never quite sure who's on the field. They did some innovative things, but I'm telling you, Pete Carroll, he just amazes me. That fake punt and direct snap run in the first quarter, they pulled the air out of the tire on the 49ers with that right from the get-go. And I'm hearing people going, oh, how could he do that after that player was injured and carted off the field? It was the ideal time to do it.
Yeah.
He got a team whose focus should have been back on the football field. I know that's tough to do. They get paid to do it.
Yeah.
He pulled.
Who said bad sportsmanship?
I've heard it multiple places. A guy that we know that does play in color on the radio said
that's the dumbest take I've ever heard.
It was me too. It was a brilliant play call. It was brilliant timing, and he set the 49ers back on their heels right there, and they never recovered. So the 49ers have got to, I mean, this is going to be a tough game for them. Now, I know it's going to be somewhat dependent on Burrow's pinky finger, but the Bengals are going to be motivated too, because they should have done better against San Diego than they did. And they know that they had a chance. They know they had a chance in that third quarter, and then they let it get back away from them. So
that win for Cincinnati, if they got it last week, that would have put them right there with the Ravens again, and they would have been able to take over first place because of that big win they had in Baltimore early in the year. So now they find themselves all the way down to, I believe, they're the 6th spot now in the AFC. All right, Bears and Packers Sunday night.
I'm sorry. The only problem for the Bengals is going to be that the 49ers are 4-2 on the road. They've been a great road team this year. So that's the thing they're going to have to watch out for.
All right, Bears Packers on Sunday night. Justin Fields going to start, and then a big one on Monday night. The Rams and Cardinals. The Cardinals, basically, if they win, they're going to win out the NFC West. They already beat the Rams in Los Angeles the first time back. A full Friday football show for you at 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 o'clock Pacific. We'll preview every game. We'll get all the lines up. But when we come back in 30 seconds, a little NBA talk, a little NCAA talk, and I'll tell you why Reggie Jackson is one of my favorite players. Not Mr. October, but Reggie Jackson for the LA Clippers. I'll explain that when we come back in 30 seconds. The Make the Money and Run podcast for Thursday, December 9th, 2021, sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Cupertino and Capitola, as well as Super Draft Pro. Check out the Britannia Arms websites and check out the Super Draft Pro. Sign up for your own leagues. Get in there and win a chance, get a chance at opportunity and win some real dollars as well, too. All right, back in 30 seconds with the NBA story. Make the Money and Run podcast, sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Cupertino, Britannia Arms of Capitola. Don't forget to check us out Sunday at Cupertino, the Cupertino location, NFL Sunday ticket. Bottomless mimosas, breakfast and lunch, all the British food and drink you can. I will be there setting up early. 9:45 West Coast time to 10:15. We'll cover the early games, and we'll give you all the late game action for a pregame kickoff at the Britannia Arms of Cupertino. Check them out at BritanniaArmsDeanza.com, 408-252-7262. And also don't forget to check out Super Draft Pro, the new daily fantasy sports site. Real dollars, real opportunity to win. Multipliers involved in there. Check out Super Draft Pro. Sign up at superdraftpro.com/VPartySports as well. And don't forget, we have our selections every day, 6 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock on the West Coast. Latest news, latest selections Monday through Friday, and then on the weekends 3 times on Saturday, and then twice on Sunday as well too. Again, Britannia Arms, Cupertino, live show there Sunday morning, 9:45 time. All right, we hit the NFL, we hit college football. Again, we'll have a full Friday football show for you, 1 Eastern on Friday, 10 a.m. on the West Coast, on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, or download and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. NBA, Reggie Jackson of the Los Angeles Clippers missed a free throw at the end that allowed the Celtics to come back from 21 down, lose by 3, make me a happy person. Had that tied with the University of Arizona last night. So thank you, Reggie Jackson. Thank you, Clippers offense, for not having Paul George in there to stabilize, because they look very shaky watching the ball. I watched that, or hanging on to the ball. I watched that game after the Warriors game ended last night, the second half of the game. Well, I had it on my computer and my phone, but then I turned it over afterwards thanks to League Pass here. 3 NBA games tonight. We will get to the lines in a second. Utah 3, 216.5 at Philadelphia. Philadelphia looks better with Embiid back. Still no Ben Simmons. Lakers seem to be playing better. Memphis, pretty hot right now, but they're still a 4-point favorite, are the Lakers at Memphis. And then San Antonio, a 2-point favorite, 215.5 against Denver, who had an overtime game win last night at New Orleans. Nikola Jokic is back. He's playing well. His 9th triple-double with 30 points being scored in NBA history. Only Chamberlain ahead of him in that category. And he's pretty dominant now that he's back. And they're a 2-point underdog at San Antonio. Got worked by the Knicks 2 days ago, Charlie. This week in the NBA, Brooklyn, Chicago atop the East. They split. Milwaukee lost last night to Miami, but they're catching up, and they're third. Miami, Washington playing well at 15-11. We said Embiid back. Cleveland, how about those Cavaliers? They beat the Bulls by 25 yesterday. They're playing well. Atlanta, Charlotte, Boston round out the top 10 in the East. Golden State sloppy against Portland yesterday, 14.5-point spread. Nowhere near against Portland. No Lillard, no McCollum. And they just played sloppy, no doubt about it. Phoenix has a big matchup with Boston tomorrow night. Friday, San Antonio, they beat San Antonio Monday barely. Is Phoenix getting into a little lull right now? They're not covering their games. Utah had a big game 2 nights ago. Last night, actually, they had a big game. They're in third place. Memphis and the Clippers with 14 wins each in 4th and 5th. How about Memphis in 4th place? That's a little surprising. Lakers blew out Boston the other night. Dallas split. And Jokic back for Denver. They're on a roll. Minnesota, Sacramento round out 9 and 10. All right, quick NBA thoughts, Charlie, on what you see from this week and coming up for tonight.
Well, the biggest thing that's going on in the NBA right now, Vasu, is 12-15, because on the 15th, everybody who signed as a free agent this season becomes eligible to be traded. So this is the first of the trade opportunities that happen. So everybody who feels like they're out of it in the NBA is ready to start selling and starting to make moves, saying, hey, maybe we can get rid of expiring contracts. Maybe we can start getting draft picks and those opportunities. Everybody who thinks that they're in it want to start bettering their teams. So there are rumors flying everywhere. My Sacramento Kings are right now to be rumored in about 84 different trade opportunities.
I heard 85.
Huh?
I heard 85.
It may be by this morning. I just haven't read enough online at this point. They've won 3 in a row, and so everybody thinks they should upgrade. There's a lot of people who think they should downgrade and go through a rebuild. I mean, it is just absolutely nuts. But right now you look at the West, and interestingly enough, that has the potential to kind of become a 3-team race. It's a little early to be saying that, but it kind of does. The Warriors and the Suns are kind of starting to pull away a little bit. The Jazz, who we never talk about because they never get any coverage, they're out there. And then all of a sudden, there's Memphis, then there's the Clippers, then there's the Lakers, although the Lakers will jump up there and become a part of it. I'm convinced of that. I don't know who the coach will be, but I'm convinced they'll swing back. But then after that, I'm not sure. I keep thinking the Nuggets are going to jump back in there, but they don't seem to be able to make a run.
I think the Nuggets are on a roll right now, Charlie. I think the fact they got Jokic back right now, that was a big win on the road last night. They were down.
Yeah, what was it? The highest scoring triple-double of the season?
The highest scoring triple-double with 30 points for Nikola Jokic. The 9th time he's done that. Only Wilt Chamberlain has had more triple-doubles with 30-point games. And he's
amazing. I love that guy.
He may not be able to jump and he may not have the vertical, but he does everything else well for that team. And I think
why do you have to jump when you got that floater that he has?
Yeah, no doubt about it. In fact, that game ended up 120 to 114 in overtime over the New Orleans Pelicans last night. The Jazz beat the Timberwolves, by the way, on the road, 136 to 104. Memphis lost to Dallas last night. Very interesting scenario with the NBA this week. Golden State and Phoenix still lead the top. Golden State with 21 wins, 21 and 4. 21 and 4, and then Phoenix at 20 and 4 coming into the week. Utah 17 and 7, as we said. In the East, Brooklyn 17 and 8. They lost to Houston last night. I didn't see the box score, but I got a feeling Durant was not in the lineup last night because that line went down from 7 to 3, and I'm sure it was not a good homecoming welcome for James Harden. I didn't watch the game. It didn't interest me last night. A little surprised the Bulls got blown out as bad as they did by the Cavaliers, but I'm going to give the Cavaliers a lot of credit. And Evan Mobley, rookie of the year right now in my book, has played well for Cleveland. They're 14 and 12, only 3 back of the Bulls. We're talking about the 7 spot to the 2 spot for Chicago and Cleveland, and they both are in the same division as well, too. So very interesting things going on in the NBA. 3 games, as we said tonight. The line again, Utah 3-point favorite with Embiid at home. They just came off the big win in Minnesota. This might have Philadelphia written all over it, but I hate to go against Utah, especially when they're not being talked about a lot like they are. But Joel Embiid is back. Gobert is there to kind of defend him, but that's the game of the night for me right there, Charlie, in terms of Philadelphia and Utah. Philadelphia, home dog, generally plays well, and they are, even though they're at 14 and 11, they've got Embiid back, and they're doing big things right now.
Yeah, well, they need Embiid. I mean, that's that's their team right now. Well, and they've got that Simmons. Oh, never mind. So, but yeah, I think we just kept saying, when they get Embiid, and so there he is. And I wouldn't at home with a +3. Yeah, I'd consider the underdog there. By the way,
since nobody's talking about Utah very much, Utah number 2 in the NBA in point differential. They average plus 10.1. The only team better than them are the Golden State Warriors at plus 12.9. That's over 25 games. So that means 25 times 3. That means that Golden State's outscored their opponents by 325, but not enough last night for 14.5.
Yeah,
for those of us. Phoenix at 6.4. They average 6.4 over their 24 games. They've got their 1-game winning streak. The Warriors game was their last loss. Just checking out the Eastern Conference. Nobody above 3.7 in the point differential in the Eastern Conference, and that's Chicago and Milwaukee. By the way, Milwaukee's playing a lot better. They're 8-2 in their last 10, even though they lost last night. So Milwaukee, a team I heard guys say last night that on TV, Van Gundy or whoever was doing the game last night, I heard them say that they think Milwaukee might still be the best team in the East right now, and they don't even have everybody back yet. Middleton's had a tough year. Once they get healthy, they don't have Brook Lopez. He's out for a little while as well too. So Milwaukee is 16.
Back surgery with him, right? With
back
Lopez?
Surgery with him. Yeah. Milwaukee 2 back of Brooklyn and 1 back of Chicago, and they're coming on like gangbusters. 8-2 in their last 10. And Brooklyn 7-3. In the West, the Warriors are 8-2. Phoenix 9-1. Utah 8-2. There's that Utah Jazz team again. Lakers, Clippers 5-5. Memphis 6-4. So very interesting tonight. Utah, Philadelphia, game of the night. Lakers at Memphis. I want to see how the Lakers do coming off their win against Boston at home. They blew Boston out. And then San Antonio and Denver. And we just talked about Jokic, Charlie. Nikola Jokic going into San Antonio. San Antonio hasn't been great this year. And Denver's back on a roll here a little bit, even though they're 3-7 in their last 10. They did lose to the Bulls early in the week, but that was Jokic's first game back from his injury. So
Right.
It'll be interesting as well. All right, moving on to college basketball here as we close out. Purdue Boilermakers, first time ever they've been number 1 in the AP poll ever. I can't believe, it seems to me, I'm not sure if that's right or not, but I guess it was mentioned. They've had some very good teams under Gene Katie in the past, but
when I heard that, I'm going, they were never won under Katie. I've got to go back and look on that a little bit.
Baylor's playing very well at 2. Duke lost to Ohio State last week. They dropped down to 3 after beating Gonzaga. Gonzaga got beat by Alabama over the weekend, I want to say like a 12 or 13 point favorite in Seattle. It wasn't in Spokane, but still Seattle. That's still about as close a home game as you're going to get. Alabama's really good, and maybe
they traveled very well for that game.
Yeah, and Alabama and the SEC, they may be taking a little page from the football team here as far as big underdogs, because that's a big win at Gonzaga. I don't care if it's Seattle or Pullman. Gonzaga was rolling there before Duke got them. UCLA is rolling. Texas has a big game tonight at Seton Hall in the Big 12 Big East battle, and Kansas also battling in the Big 12. They only have 1 loss. So Texas and KU battle in the Big 12. UCLA right now running away with the Pac-12. Of course, we haven't had conference yet. Arizona, actually, I shouldn't say running away, because Arizona held a very good Wyoming team who was 8-0 coming in to about 35 points and beat them by nearly 30 last night. Arizona, UCLA, the 2 good teams in the 2 great teams in the Pac-12 right now. Have to see where Oregon is on that. And don't count out the Washington State Cougars. They held Arizona State to 29 points last night. By the way, Arizona State only a 3.5 point favorite against Grand Canyon. How they have fallen big time in Tempe with Bobby Hurley there, because that's going to be if you're only a 3.5 point favorite against GCU. I know you have some ties to GCU, but that's a pretty low spread there for Arizona State coming in.
Well, let's face the facts. GCU, a nice, exciting school that made the big dance last year for the first time. They're in the reconstituted Big West, which is not the highest competition. They are fighting to even make mid-major. So if that's your situation going up against a Pac-12 school, Bobby Hurley, start getting the boxes for that office, buddy, because you're going to be somebody's maybe your brother's assistant next year.
Yep. Good night last night in the college basketball for me. I got Indiana blew a big lead. I was able to get a push on that at +5 against Wisconsin. Wisconsin's second big comeback they've had this year. Connecticut, a 3-point underdog. They pushed against West Virginia. That was a good game last night as well, too. And then Marquette goes into Manhattan and beats Kansas State as a 2-point underdog. That was a win for me as well, too. So all in all, a good day. Other than the Warriors yesterday, it was a good day to be on Vasu's team. So don't forget, at 6 o'clock, we will have our selection Thursday. Nick will be with us at that point, and then Charlie O will have our selections by 6 Eastern. Good top 25 games today. Texas Seton Hall, Purdue at Rutgers. That's a Big 10 game as conference play has started. Merrimack is going up to Gonzaga, 32.5 point underdog for Merrimack. And then a big one in the state of Iowa. Iowa State, number 17. They only had 2 wins last year. They're a 5.5 point underdog at home to the Iowa Hawkeyes, who just got beat earlier in the week over the weekend, and on Monday or Tuesday they got beat. But actually, you know what? Let me check this out, because I'm trying to think of where they were. They got beat by Illinois on Monday night. Illinois on the road as a 2.5 point underdog. They came in and beat Iowa on the road there. So the Big Ten starting off very well as well. But Iowa on the road at Iowa State, going to Ames, 5-point favorite. That could be an Iowa State game right there, 9 o'clock Eastern on ESPN2. All right, last thing here, we're just going to throw out a little hockey. Starting to get into the hockey betting scene here. Big Thursday includes the Leaf and Lightning, Detroit, St. Louis. Detroit leading second in the wild card in the East. Big time, big doings for Detroit right now, considering they were not very good coming in. Edmonton and Boston. How about the Seattle Kraken? They have 9 wins and 20 points. I mean, they're not Vegas from a couple of years ago. Minnesota best in the West. They visit San Jose tonight. Florida, Toronto, Washington lead the East. The Rangers and the Lightning on their heels. Calgary, Anaheim, Edmonton, the next up in the West after the Minnesota Wild. How about the Minnesota Wild leading the Western Conference in points this year with a really good team and really good goaltending? And we will talk hockey, and we'll get Joe Madden on in the next week or so to talk hockey because we love talking hockey, and hockey odds are the best when December, January roll around after football. Hockey is a great sport to bet on, Charlie.
Now, is it true that the Phoenix Coyotes are playing in a
Arizona Coyotes
lot tonight in Glendale?
I don't know. Arizona Coyotes. They're not even the Phoenix Coyotes anymore. Apparently, they haven't paid their lease off to is it Gila Rivers Casino?
Well, it's the city of Glendale is who it is. Actually, they have until December 20th to work it out, and I'm sure they will. But
I'm sure they will because
that whole thing, they just need to get out of there because I can't understand what's going on down there.
Well, a couple of years ago, the league was trying to help them out, and I don't know what happened with that because I don't know if they can find investors or they need to get out of Arizona. I love watching hockey. A couple of times I went down there. The whiteout, San Jose was down there a couple of times for that. The playoff runs that they had were really good, but it's time. I mean, this is how bad it's going for the Arizona Coyotes, and this is due to our show as well too. They're pretty much standard 280 to 300 underdogs on the money line, and if you're already at plus 280 or plus 300 to begin with, I don't care how much money you throw on the other way, that line's not going to come down. So that should tell you something about the Arizona Coyotes right now. All right, we will be back tomorrow, 1 o'clock Eastern. 10 a.m. on the West Coast, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter for the Make the Money and Run podcast, the Friday football show, full preview of the NFL games. We'll talk a little bowl games. We'll review a little bit of the BCS as well, too, and we'll go through some of the bowl games as well. But it's going to be primarily an NFL Sunday. Don't forget, Sunday morning, West Coast time at the Britannia Arms of Cupertino. We'll have a live show there, 9:45 a.m. If you're in the area, come on down. Say hi. If not, check us out on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Maybe I can get Charlie to come on at 9:45 in the morning on Sunday.
You know what? There's a good chance this week because they moved the 49ers game.
So that's right. Okay. So we might have a shot here for a half-hour pregame show. We'll preview all the early games before kickoff. And then after 10 o'clock, we'll get to the later games, give you all the latest news and updates and all the line movements there are for Sunday football. A big week in the NFL. This is week 15, I believe. Is that right? This is week 15. Week 16.
Week 16.
I'm sorry. No, this is week 14.
I don't know. I can't keep up with it.
It's week 14. It is week 14. Well, officially, it's week 14. It starts with Pittsburgh and Minnesota tonight. Don't be surprised if the Steelers win tonight. But check us out at 6 Eastern for our official picks, our official selections, and the latest news. All right, for Charlie O, intern Nick Robinson, Vasi Vadaparty here. That's the Make the Money and Run podcast, sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Cupertino and Capitola. And don't forget Super Draft Pro. Check out superdraftpro.com/VPartySports. We will see you tomorrow, 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 o'clock Pacific, for the Make the Money and Run Friday football show. Have a great afternoon. Good luck with your games, and we will talk to you then.